Project Prometheus activated with a silent pulse that rippled through space. The sphere on the Defiant released waves of energy unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where the waves touched the void swarm, connections broke. The massive darkness that had moved as one entity began to fracture. "It's working," Dr. Freeman whispered, watching the data stream across her screen. Dr. Wells nodded. Phase 1 complete. Beginning Phase 2. On the bridge, Captain Ross watched as the void swarm reacted to the attack. Parts of it pulled away, trying to escape the energy waves. Other parts pushed forward with renewed fury. "All ships, hold position," she ordered. "The swarm will attempt to break through our lines. We need to maintain the shield wall." Throughout the human fleet, captains acknowledged the order. Their ships locked together in formation, energy barriers strengthening as the void crashed against them like a storm. Admiral Carter watched from his command ship. Status of the evacuation: 60% complete, Lieutenant Garcia reported. "The Council is moving as quickly as they can, but we need more time." Carter's face hardened. "Then we'll give them more time." He opened a channel to all human vessels. "This is Admiral Carter. Deploy Phase 3 defensive measures. We stand our ground." Across the fleet, new weapon systems came online. From the smallest fighter to the largest battleship, panels opened to reveal devices that glowed with strange light. They fired in unison, not at the void itself, but at the space around it. Reality twisted. The fabric of space-time bent and folded around sections of the void swarm, trapping them in bubbles of altered physics where time moved differently. The swarm's advance slowed dramatically. On Xeraxis, Counselor Zixveri watched in awe through the viewports of his evacuation ship. "What are they doing?" he asked the human liaison officer beside him. "Creating time distortion fields," the officer explained. "Buying us time by making time itself move differently for the swarm." Zixveri's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. "Our scientists claimed such technology was impossible." The human officer smiled slightly. "We heard that a lot." Back on the Defiant, Dr. Wells and Dr. Freeman prepared for the final stage of Project Prometheus. The sphere had grown brighter, almost painful to look at directly. "Energy levels at maximum," Freeman reported. "The core is stable." Wells took a deep breath. Initiating final sequence. He pressed his hand to the control panel. The sphere pulsed once, twice, then released a blinding flash of light that spread outward in all directions. Where it touched the void swarm, something fundamental changed. The darkness that had been a single entity for millennia shattered into billions of disconnected particles. The intelligence that had guided it, that had consumed countless civilizations, broke apart. The quantum connections that allowed it to function as one being were severed permanently. "It's not a weapon," Garcia realized, watching from the bridge. "It's a disruption field. It doesn't destroy the void. It sets it free," Ross finished, each particle returning to its natural state. Where the void swarm had been, points of light now sparkled. The remnants of the entity drifted harmlessly, becoming nothing more than ordinary cosmic dust. 2 weeks later, the Council reconvened in a temporary chamber on a colony world. Many of their greatest cities had been lost, but their civilization had survived. Admiral Carter stood before them, flanked by Captain Ross and Dr. Wells. "Humanity thanks you for the opportunity to address this assembly," Carter began formally. Zixveri, still the lead counselor despite everything, inclined his head. "The Council owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. You saved not just our homeworld, but potentially all life in the galaxy." Carter nodded. "We didn't come to discuss the past, but the future. Earth would like to propose a new beginning. Not a return to the old council, but the formation of a new alliance, one where all species truly stand as equals." Murmurs spread through the chamber, but this time they were hopeful. "What would you call this new alliance?" Zixveri asked. Carter smiled. "The Galactic Accord, an agreement among equals, built on mutual respect and the sharing of knowledge." As the council members rose to signal their approval, the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter. The darkness had been vanquished, not by fear or power, but by something the old council had never truly understood: cooperation. The galaxy had learned what fear was. Now it would learn what hope could be. The council homeworld of Xeraxis shimmered like a jewel in space. For 10,000 years, it had been the center of galactic civilization. Now darkness approached it. The void swarm filled the sky, blotting out stars as it advanced. The Council Defense Fleet formed a line between the planet and the oncoming threat. Their weapons looked small and feeble against the vastness of the enemy. In the great evacuation center below, millions of civilians waited in fear. Council officials had assured them that help was coming. Few believed it would arrive in time. Councillor Zixveri stood in the central command post, watching screens that showed the void's approach. His blue scales had faded to a pale gray from stress. "Time until impact?" he asked. 20 minutes, an officer replied. "The outer defense line is already lost." Zixveri closed his eyes. "And the humans?" "No response to our request, sir." Just then, alarms sounded across the command center. Officers rushed to their stations. "Multiple jump signatures detected," shouted a sensor operator. "Thousands of them." Zixveri looked up at the main screen. Across the entire system, points of light flashed into existence. From each point emerged a human vessel. Small fighters, medium cruisers, massive battleships. More ships than the Council had ever seen in one place. At the center of the human formation, the ESS Defiant appeared. Captain Ross stood on her bridge, surveying the tactical display. "All ships in position," reported Lieutenant Garcia. "The Void has noticed our arrival. It's changing formation." Ross nodded. "Deploy Phase 1 barriers. Protect the evacuation routes first, then the planet." Across the human fleet, energy fields activated. They connected ship to ship, creating a vast web that spread between the planet and the void. On Xeraxis, civilians watched in awe as the sky filled with human ships. They moved with precision, forming complex patterns that somehow held the darkness at bay. In the command center, Zixveri received a transmission. "This is Admiral Alan Carter of Earth. We are responding to your request for assistance." Zixveri swallowed his pride. "We are grateful for your help, Admiral." "Evacuation must begin immediately," Carter continued. "We can hold the void back, but not indefinitely." "Understood." As Council evacuation ships began to rise from the surface, the human fleet engaged the void directly. They used weapons that bent light and twisted space. Where Council ships had fired blindly into the mass, human vessels targeted specific points with surgical precision. Dr. Wells and Dr. Freeman worked in the science bay of the Defiant, studying real-time data from the void. "There," Wells said, pointing to a pattern in the swirling darkness. "The neural cluster. It's exactly as we predicted." Freeman nodded and opened a channel to the bridge. "Captain, we've located the central intelligence of the swarm. Sending coordinates now." Ross received the information and turned to her weapons officer. "Prepare Project Prometheus for deployment." On the planet below, Major Denise Howard led a team of human soldiers to assist with the evacuation. They moved through panicked crowds with calm efficiency, helping the young and elderly board ships. A small child, separated from her parents, cried in fear as the sky darkened above. Howard knelt beside her. "Don't worry," she said gently. "We won't let the darkness get you." The girl looked up at the human with wonder. "You came to help us, even after we were mean to you." Howard smiled. "That's what humans do." In orbit, the battle intensified. The void swarm seemed to recognize the threat the humans posed. It concentrated its attacks on the largest human vessels. "The swarm is adapting faster than expected," Garcia reported on the Defiance bridge. "Our barriers are holding at 70%, but they're draining quickly." Ross's face remained calm. "It's time. Tell Dr. Wells to activate Project Prometheus." In the science bay, Wells and Freeman made final adjustments to the sphere. Its surface now rippled like liquid metal, patterns shifting faster than the eye could follow. All systems green, Freeman reported, ready for deployment. Wells placed his hand on the control panel. Initiating now. The sphere began to hum. Around it, reality itself seemed to bend. And across the battlefield, the void swarm shuddered, as if feeling fear for the first time. News of the Centauri colony spread quickly through Council space. The story was the same everywhere. The void swarm had broken through containment. The Council fleet had been too slow, and humans had saved millions of lives with technology no one had seen before. In the Great Council chamber, chaos reigned. How did the humans develop such weapons? Demanded the representative from the Arcturus Federation. They were barely space-capable when they joined us. More importantly, said the delegate from the water-dwelling Nereid Collective, her words translated from bubbling sounds. Why did they help us after we dismissed their warnings? Councillor Zixveri struggled to maintain order. Representatives shouted questions and accusations. Some demanded alliance with the humans. Others insisted on taking human technology by force. Silence. Zixveri finally roared. The void swarm situation is under control. The Centauri incident was an anomaly. A small, rarely noticed delegate from the outer systems stood. Is it under control, Counselor? Reports say 3 more colonies have been attacked. The containment fleet is stretched too thin. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Fear was growing. On the jungle world of Vortex Prime, Ambassador Murphy met secretly with representatives from 7 council species. They gathered in an ancient temple, far from monitoring devices. My government authorized me to share limited information, Murphy said, placing a data crystal on the stone table. This contains defense strategies against the void. Mara, the Vexian diplomat who had watched the humans leave Proxima Station, reached for the crystal. Why help us? Your people have every reason to let us face this alone. Murphy's face remained neutral. This isn't about politics. It's about survival. The Council won't accept human assistance openly, said a reptilian diplomat. Too much pride. Then don't tell them, Murphy replied simply. On Earth, Admiral Carter reviewed reports from across the galaxy. The Void Swarm was attacking on multiple fronts now, moving with purpose. The ancient random feeding pattern had changed to targeted strikes against populated worlds. It's learning, Dr. Wells said, studying the attack patterns, becoming more intelligent with each system it consumes. Carter looked grim. Is Project Prometheus ready? Almost, Wells answered. The prototype worked at Centauri, but for full deployment, we need to get closer to the swarm's central mass. Captain Ross entered the room. The ESS Defiant is prepped for the mission. We can depart in 6 hours. Carter nodded. Make it 4. In the deepest chamber beneath the council hall, the High Council, the 7 eldest members who truly ruled, met in emergency session. The humans know too much, said one ancient being, their form barely visible in the dim light. They must have accessed the forbidden archives somehow. Impossible, said another. Those records were purged centuries ago. Then how did they develop exactly the right technology to fight the void? Asked a third. The quantum disruption field was our own design from the first Void War, but we abandoned it as too dangerous. Perhaps, suggested the eldest, we underestimated them from the beginning. In the hangar bay of the ESS Defiant, Dr. Freeman supervised as Project Prometheus was loaded aboard. The sphere had grown larger, now the size of a small car, its surface rippling with complex patterns. Are you sure this will work? Lieutenant Garcia asked, watching the device with unease. No, Freeman admitted, but it's our best chance. As the Defiant prepared to depart, a message arrived from deep space. The Void Swarm had changed course again. It was heading directly for the Council homeworld. Councillor Zixveri stared in disbelief at the emergency reports. Their defenses were scattered, their containment fleet in disarray. The homeworld was nearly defenseless. "We need to evacuate," an aide suggested. "There's no time," Zixveri replied. "Send a message to every council world. All available ships must come to our defense." The aide hesitated. "Sir, should we contact Earth?" Zixveri closed his 6 eyes briefly. Pride warred with fear as the realization of their situation sank in. "Yes," he said finally. "Send a formal request for aid." The message traveled across the galaxy to Earth. When Admiral Carter received it, he read it twice before looking up at his officers. "Ready the fleet," he said simply. "All of it." Alarms blared across the Centauri colony. The sky turned black as the Void Swarm descended on the planet. Council defense ships fired desperately at the massive dark cloud that consumed everything it touched. "Evacuation is at 30%, reported a Tellurian officer. "We need more time." The colony governor, a tall insectoid being named Kirvosh, watched in horror as the Void Swarm broke through the orbital defenses. The council had assured them this world was safe. They had promised the containment would hold. They were wrong. "Send a distress call to the council," Kirvosh ordered. "All regular channels are jammed," said his aide. "The void is disrupting communications." Kirvosh hesitated. "Try the emergency frequency. Call everyone." On Earth, Admiral Carter was in the middle of a strategy meeting when the message came through. "Sir, we're receiving a distress call from the Centauri colony," said a communications officer. "The Void Swarm has broken through." The room fell silent. Carter looked at the faces around him. Captain Ross, Dr. Wells, Ambassador Murphy. They all knew what this meant. "How many civilians?" Carter asked quietly. "Approximately 9 million. Evacuation has barely begun." Carter stood. "The council? Their response fleet is 3 days away." Carter nodded once. "Contact all ships in range. Deploy the 7th Fleet immediately." Ambassador Murphy stepped forward. "Sir, we have no obligation to help them. The council ignored our warnings." "This isn't about the council," Carter replied. "There are 9 million innocent lives at stake." On the Centauri colony, Kirvosh watched as the Void Swarm consumed the outer settlements. Evacuation ships lifted off, filled with terrified civilians. Many wouldn't make it. "Governor," called his aide, "we're detecting ships entering the system." "The council responded already?" Kirvosh asked with hope. "No, sir. They're human ships." Kirvosh rushed to the viewport. In the sky above, sleek black vessels appeared. Dozens of them, then hundreds. They moved with impossible speed, positioning themselves between the colony and the advancing void. The ESS Defiant led the human fleet. On the bridge, Captain Ross stood calmly giving orders. "Deploy phase shields. Protect the evacuation routes first." Lieutenant Garcia monitored the tactical display. "Captain, the void is adapting to our presence. It's concentrating its mass for an assault." "Perfect," Ross said. "That's exactly what we want." The human ships formed a dome over the colony. Energy fields connected them, creating a barrier unlike anything the council had ever developed. The Void Swarm crashed against it like a wave against rock. "Phase 2, Ross ordered. From the underside of each human ship, strange devices extended. They pulsed with blue light. The Void Swarm recoiled as if in pain. On the colony surface, Kirvosh couldn't believe what he was seeing. The void was retreating. "What are those ships doing?" he asked in awe. His science officer studied the readings. "They're using some kind of quantum disruption field. It's breaking the swarm's neural connections. I've never seen technology like this." The evacuation continued under the protection of the human fleet. Hour after hour, ships filled with civilians escaped to safety. The Void Swarm tried repeatedly to break through but couldn't penetrate the human defenses. On the 3rd day, the Council fleet finally arrived. They found the colony mostly evacuated, the Void Swarm pushed back to the edge of the system, and the human fleet preparing to depart. Admiral Zenlo, commander of the Council forces, opened a channel to the human flagship. This is Admiral Zenlo of the Galactic Council. We thank you for your assistance. Captain Ross appeared on the screen. The evacuation is 97% complete. We've created a temporary barrier that will hold for approximately 1 week. I suggest you use that time wisely. Wait, Zenlo said quickly. We should coordinate our efforts, share information, work together. Ross's face showed no emotion. We offered cooperation 2 years ago. You declined. Things have changed, Zenlo insisted. Yes, Ross agreed. They have. The transmission ended. The human fleet disappeared in flashes of light. Using a jump technology the Council had deemed theoretically impossible. Admiral Zenlo stared at the empty space where they had been. What have we done? He whispered. Dr. Wells stood before a wall of screens in the command center. Each showed a different part of the galaxy. One image glowed brighter than the others. A dark mass moving slowly at the edge of known space. The void swarm has increased in size by 27% since our last measurement, he said. It's growing faster than our models predicted. Admiral Carter and Captain Ross studied the images. The room was silent except for the soft hum of computers. How long until it reaches populated systems? Carter asked. 6 months, Wells replied. Maybe less. Ross crossed her arms. And the Council still hasn't warned anyone. No, their containment protocols remain unchanged. They believe they can manage it, just as they have for centuries. Carter's face hardened. They're wrong. 4 months before Earth left the Council, a small human science vessel had ventured beyond the galaxy's edge. It was a routine mission to study dark matter. What they found instead was horror. The void swarm consumed everything in its path. Stars, planets, asteroids, all broken down into base elements and absorbed. It wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was alive. It was hungry. And it was growing. When the science vessel returned with its findings, Earth immediately reported to the Council. The response shocked them. We are aware of the entity you describe, the Council's Science Directorate had said. It has existed for thousands of years. Our containment measures are adequate. But Earth's scientists disagreed. Their calculations showed the swarm was evolving, growing faster, becoming smarter. The Council dismissed their concerns. That was when humanity made its choice. Now, in a secure facility beneath the Mariana Trench, Dr. Lisa Freeman supervised the final assembly of the core component of Project Prometheus. The device was surprisingly small, a sphere no larger than a basketball, but containing technology that had never existed before. Power test complete, said a technician. Quantum field stable. Freeman nodded. Begin the targeting sequence. The sphere hummed to life. Inside, lights shifted and moved like a living thing. On nearby screens, complex equations solved themselves faster than human eyes could follow. Dr. Wells was right, Freeman said quietly. It's working. On the Council homeworld, Zix Very met with his inner circle. Reports from across the galaxy had him worried, though he would never admit it publicly. The containment fleet reports increased activity from the void, said an aide. 3 ships were lost in the last encounter. Zix Very paced the room, increased the patrol frequency, double the energy output from the barrier stations. Sir, the barrier stations are already at maximum capacity. Then build more. We've managed this threat for centuries. We will continue to do so. A junior counselor spoke hesitantly. Perhaps we should reconsider the humans' offer of assistance. Zix Very turned sharply. We need no help from primitives. Their fears are baseless. But his eyes showed doubt. In deep space, the ESS Defiant led a fleet of newly built human vessels on their first combat exercise. Captain Ross watched as her ships moved in perfect formation, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible under Council restrictions. All ships report ready for Phase 2 testing, said Lieutenant Garcia. Begin the simulation, Ross ordered. The fleet split into smaller groups. Holographic targets appeared, mimicking the behavior of the Void Swarm based on the limited data they had. The ships fired weapons that the Council had never seen, directed energy beams that twisted space itself. Hit rate 93%, Garcia reported. That's our best result yet. Ross nodded. It's still not enough. A communication officer turned from her station. Captain, we're receiving reports from the outer sensors. The Void Swarm has changed course. It's moving faster now, heading directly toward Council space. Ross's expression darkened. Send word to Earth. It's time to implement Phase 3. Across human space, shipyards increased production. Defense platforms activated. The Earth Defense Initiative went to full alert. And in the darkness between stars, the Void Swarm sensed new prey. It had consumed countless civilizations over millennia. The small containment efforts of the Council had merely amused it. But now it sensed something different, something preparing to fight back, something it had never encountered before. Humanity was ready for war. 1 year passed since humanity's withdrawal from the Council. Despite numerous diplomatic attempts, Earth remained silent. The Council's messages went unanswered. Their probes disappeared when they approached human borders. The silence became unsettling. The research vessel Distant Horizon drifted at the edge of human space. Its mission, officially, was to study stellar phenomena. In reality, it was there to spy. Captain Jorlath of the Tellurian Republic adjusted his breathing apparatus and addressed his crew. We will cross into human territory today. Our orders are to observe only. His science officer, Kell, looked nervous. Captain, this violates Council law. The Council needs information. We will provide it. The Distant Horizon slipped past the boundary markers. For 3 days, they traveled deeper into human space, sensors recording everything. They expected to find humans licking their wounds, perhaps struggling without Council trade and technology. What they found stunned them into silence. Around the fourth planet of an unremarkable star system, a massive structure orbited. Not a station, but a shipyard larger than any in Council space. Dozens of vessels under construction. Some were clearly warships with design features the Council had never seen. This is impossible, whispered Kell. Our intelligence said humans lacked the industrial capacity for this. Jorlath ordered his communication officer to record everything. The Council must see this. Before they could retreat, 3 ships appeared around them. They had come from nowhere, bypassing all detection systems. A voice came through their communication system. Distant Horizon, you have entered sovereign human space without permission. Power down your systems immediately. On Earth, Admiral Carter reviewed the footage of the captured Council vessel. He sat with Captain Ross and Dr. Wells in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. They saw too much, Ross said. We should detain them. Carter shook his head. No, we'll send them back with a message. Are you sure that's wise, sir? Wells asked. Project Prometheus is still not ready. It's time the Council got a small glimpse of what we've been doing, Carter replied. Just enough to make them think. On the Distant Horizon, Captain Jorlath was escorted to a communication room. A human officer waited for him. I am Major Howard. You will be allowed to return to Council space with your crew and vessel intact. Jorlath's skin paled with relief. Thank you. We meant no harm. Before you go, you will be shown something. You may report it to your superiors. A door opened, revealing a window that overlooked a massive hangar. Inside sat a ship unlike any Jorlath had ever seen. Its hull was dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Strange patterns covered its surface. At certain angles, it seemed to fade from view. What is that? He asked. One of many, Major Howard replied. Now go and deliver this message. This is sovereign human space. We have withdrawn from the Council. Do not return. When the Distant Horizon returned to Council space, its data caused an uproar. An emergency session was called immediately. The humans have been deceiving us, Counselor Zixveri said angrily. They've had technology they never shared. The Morvian representative sphere pulsed rapidly. The designs we've seen suggest capabilities we thought impossible. Perhaps, said a representative from the Arcturian Alliance, we should ask ourselves why they left so suddenly. What do they know that we don't? Zixveri silenced the chamber. I propose we send a formal delegation to Earth. Demand answers. In a secure chamber beneath the main council hall, a small group of senior counselors met in secret. Their faces showed fear. Could they know about the void? One asked. Impossible, said another. We've contained that information for centuries. Then why build such a fleet? Why work with such purpose? No one had an answer. On the edge of the galaxy, beyond the territories of any known species, a vast darkness moved. It consumed a lifeless star system, breaking down matter into energy. It grew stronger. Soon it would be ready to spread. And in human space, Project Prometheus neared completion. Humanity prepared for a war the Council had never had the courage to fight. 3 days after Earth's withdrawal from the Council, the grand halls of the Proxima Station fell silent. For years, this trading hub had bustled with activity. Human traders had brought coffee, art, and innovative tech designs. Human diplomats had hosted meetings in these halls. Human scientists had shared their labs with alien researchers. Now they were gone. All of them. A tall, thin alien with feathered skin watched as the last human transport departed. Mara, a junior diplomat from the Vexian Collective, had made many human friends. She pressed a hand against the viewport as the ship vanished into the darkness of space. They really left, she whispered. Across council space, the pattern repeated. Human embassies closed. Trade offices shut down. Research stations emptied. All without fuss or confrontation. When questioned, human representatives simply stated they were following protocol exodus and offered no further explanation. On Earth, Admiral Carter sat in a dimly lit conference room. Screens displayed real-time data from across human territory. Every hour, more green dots appeared, showing ships and personnel safely returned to human space. 97% complete, said Kevin Murphy, Earth's former ambassador to the Council. Ahead of schedule. Carter nodded. Any problems? None. The Council seems too shocked to interfere. They still think we're making a point. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. And the special projects. Ambassador Murphy slid a data pad across the table. Dr. Wells retrieved everything. The Council doesn't know what we took. On the colony world of New Montana, Captain Ross supervised as massive cargo ships unloaded their contents. Workers moved quickly, transporting materials to newly built factories that stretched across the valley. Captain, we've received word from the mining outposts in the Kuiper Belt, said Lieutenant Garcia. Production has tripled since the Council inspectors left. Ross smiled. Good. We've lost too much time already. A convoy of trucks rumbled past, carrying components for what would soon become the largest shipyard in human space. Construction drones swarmed overhead, building at speeds that would have violated Council safety regulations. How long until the Council notices what we're doing? Garcia asked. They'll notice the silence first, Ross replied. But by the time they understand what it means, we'll be ready. In his laboratory beneath Lake Geneva, Dr. Wells worked tirelessly. Holographic displays showed molecular structures that shifted and combined in impossible ways. Behind him, Dr. Freeman monitored equipment that the Council had never seen. The simulations are complete, she said. Project Prometheus is viable. Wells nodded but didn't look up from his work. Begin production immediately. Priority Alpha. Nathan, Freeman said hesitantly, should we tell them what's coming? Wells finally looked up, his eyes reflecting the glow of the displays. They've known for centuries, Lisa. They chose not to prepare. They chose not to warn us. In the Council chamber, an emergency session had been called. Representatives argued loudly as reports came in from across their territories. The humans have recalled every citizen, reported a serpentine delegate. Every ship, every diplomat, every tourist. Their borders are now sealed with automated defense platforms. Counselor Zixveri waved a dismissive hand, a dramatic gesture, nothing more. "I'm not so sure," said the Morvian representative, his hovering sphere pulsing with concern. "Our long-range scans show unusual activity in human space, massive energy signatures. Construction on a scale we've never observed from them before. They lack the technology for anything truly concerning," Zixveri insisted. A small, rarely noticed delegate from the Outer Rim stepped forward. Perhaps they lacked the motivation, not the capability. Silence fell over the chamber as the delegates considered this. On the edges of human space, automated beacons broadcast a simple message to any approaching vessels. "This is sovereign human territory. We have withdrawn from the Galactic Council. Do not attempt to cross this boundary." Behind these markers, humanity worked with single-minded purpose. Mining operations stripped asteroids bare. Factories ran day and night. Research centers tested technologies long hidden from Council eyes. And deep in the darkness beyond the edge of the galaxy, something stirred. Something that had been watching and waiting for millennia. Something that would soon test the will of every sentient species. Something that would teach the stars what fear truly was. Admiral Alan Carter stood tall before the Galactic Council. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his eyes burned with resolve. 50 years of human membership in this grand alliance of species had led to this moment. The great chamber fell silent as he stepped forward. The council chamber was enormous. 7 tiers of seats rose around him, filled with representatives from over 200 alien civilizations. Some looked almost human. Others were as different from humans as clouds from stones. Floating orbs of light hovered near crystal pools where water-dwelling species washed. Massive insectoid beings clicked their mandibles in the high-gravity sections. At the center of it all sat Counselor Zixveri, his blue-scaled skin shimmering under the artificial light. His 6 eyes blinked in sequence as he gestured for Carter to speak. "Honored Council," Carter began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "For 5 decades, humanity has contributed to this alliance. We have shared our resources, fought in your wars, and opened our borders to your trade. Yet at every turn, we are dismissed as primitive, our ideas ignored, our warnings unheeded." Murmurs spread through the chamber. A few representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Therefore, as of this moment, Earth and all human colonies officially withdraw from the Galactic Council. The chamber erupted. Some representatives shouted. Others laughed. A few simply observed with unreadable alien expressions. Zixveri raised a clawed hand, and silence returned. "Admiral Carter," he said, his translator giving his words a silky quality. "This is most dramatic. But surely you understand such an action will only harm your own people. The Council has been generous in guiding your young species." Carter didn't blink. "Our decision is final." On the other side of the Council space station, Captain Olivia Ross walked briskly through the corridors of the Earth ship ESS Defiant. Crew members stepped aside as she passed, her determined stride telling them all they needed to know. "Status report," she demanded as she entered the bridge. Lieutenant Paul Garcia turned from his station. "All human personnel are aboard, Captain. The last science team just cleared customs. Dr. Wells is with them." "Good." Ross took her command chair. "Are we being monitored?" "Yes, Captain. 3 Council security vessels have moved to observe us." Ross smiled slightly. "Just as expected." In the station's science wing, Dr. Nathan Wells supervised as his team packed up decades of research. His hands moved with precision as he carefully placed a small data crystal into a secure case. "That's everything, Doctor," said Dr. Lisa Freeman, his chief assistant. "Though I still don't understand why we're taking the bacterial samples. The Council already has copies of all our research." Wells locked the case. "They have what we gave them," he said quietly. "Not everything." Freeman's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded and said nothing more. Back in the Council chamber, Zixveri was growing impatient. "Admiral, this display has gone on long enough. If Earth has specific grievances, there are proper channels." "We have used your channels," Carter interrupted. "For 50 years, we have followed your protocols. It changes nothing. You do not see us as equals. You never have." A representative from the Morvian cluster, a gaseous being contained in a hovering mechanical sphere, moved forward. "The humans are simply showing their emotional nature. They will calm down and return when they realize their mistake." Many council members nodded in agreement. Carter's face remained impassive, but something cold settled in his eyes. "You still don't understand. This isn't a negotiating tactic." His communication device chimed. He checked it and nodded once. "All human ships have departed Council space. All human diplomats and scientists have been recalled. Our borders are now closed to Council traffic." "You cannot be serious," Zixveri said, his voice losing its smooth quality. Carter turned to leave. At the chamber door, he paused and looked back. "When we came to you, we came as friends. We leave the same way. But we will not return as supplicants." The doors closed behind him with a soft hiss, leaving the council in stunned silence. None of them realized that they had just witnessed the beginning of the end of their era. None of them understood what humanity would become in the coming darkness. None of them knew what fear was. Not yet.